What made you want to build your own company?
Honestly, it's to fulfill potential. I always say that you can work for someone else and make them rich, but one thing is to fulfill your potential. So that means, creatively, financially, and also the amount of impact that you can have on the world. So if you own something, I believe you'll have a greater usefulness because of the utility you'll get out of the thing you create. So you can you can give back a whole lot more to all the stakeholders in your life and the greater community.
And how did you get started?
Okay, well, not to make a long story out of it, but it really all starts with my childhood, which I believe I was a privileged child. Not to say that I was like a rich kid, because I definitely wasn't a rich kid, but I did have a community that was definitely supported by my mother and my father, even though they pretty much divorced early, but they were still both in my lives, very loving and caring, and kind of gave me the freedom to explore some things that caught my interest. And so, of course, it was video games, man. I was a Sega Master System, but I was biased to Sega for all those game heads out there. You know how the bias is when you're young. But just played games, and I was at one point I was like, hey, I want to make games, and as life went on, I was like not the greatest student. I was pretty decent, but I always had a itching for technology and creativity, and did a lot of, I would draw, write stories, and then also make game designs. But at one point I kind of got a little discouraged. So probably around after high school, I was like, hey, let me get this business management and finance degree. And so that's what I did. And I was like, okay, this isn't exactly what I want to do. I just kind of fell into it. But then I said, hey, you know what? I still like drawing, so let's go back. So I went back for a studio art degree. But at the same time, I was taking a lot of electives in terms of programming. And I also at one point I found a collective of young Black youth. At the time they were called Pantheon, and we started creating video games. And from there I kind of dug into the crates in terms of education. So it was like, hey, how do I do 3D graphics? How do I program? How do these game engines work? How do I get things controlled by a controller? And so that kind of just kept building and building. And so as that went on, many projects were attempted. Most were failures, but all of that was learning, right? So it's like it was never one of those things where I regret it that we didn't succeed on many things, but I remembered that I was like, hey, every failure just ramped up into making something that was successful, and or even in my personal or entrepreneurial endeavors. So what happened was that I eventually went into teaching while I was making games with a friend who had a company named Soda Animation, and we ended up making a game called Escape from Zombie U. It was really cool, but really where I grew was actually teaching, and I ended up teaching journalism, and then I ended up and then eventually I started teaching game design. And that was like probably the most fun I've ever had. It was like crazy, and so it was a lot of fun. And then from there I kind of went into the private sector, and I started working for a company named 360i, and that's a digital marketing agency. And I was hired as a creative technologist. So I kind of put all of my elements and skills together. So where I was doing 3D graphics plus programming, plus doing a bit of design for those concepts, and creatively empowering creatives on how to use technology in creative ways. So and then from there I said, you know what? I was introduced to VR at 360i actually, and I was like, yo, VR is like, it's something every time I put on a headset I was like, God, this thing is amazing. So I said, hey, why not make a game? So from there I just started moving from there, and we created Lives for Reality, and we're pretty excited to hopefully find some success in this market.
When you first started your own company, this VR company, how dedicated were you to it? And has that changed?
Um, it's interesting. We started probably a year before COVID, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little less around. And then and we were just building our we're building the game, prototyping, putting in mechanics with my team, and then COVID struck, and it like literally everything just ceased production. It was probably 2020 was a horrible year. I think the amount of people that I know that died or passed away, I mean, it really kind of halted production, and that was just on my side. So everyone else on the team is going through their own thing. So I try not to feel so down on my side, even though everyone's going through their drama, because I know everyone is going through some drama. So it's kind of in an odd way, it's kind of how that the community came together. So in terms of dedicating the amount of time, it's kind of on and off. But one thing I did learn was not to stress myself out and in terms of building this game, and to stress out my team. So one thing we did change is how we reach milestones. So at first we used to put timelines on everything. So it was like, hey, we have 3 months to do this, and we have 2 months to do that. And then if we didn't make it, it was like we were just disappointing ourselves. Like it became something, because obviously you don't work at this full time, building the game. We kind of do it on our off hours. Everyone has different schedules. So we came back and we strategized. And so what we did is that now, instead of saying, hey, this is due at this time, we just created a board of things that we need in order to make the minimal viable product. And so from there, we just said, hey, every time we do something, we turn that block yellow. So the whole goal is to basically color in this field, this metric field, and just make sure that everything turns yellow. And so it becomes the energy is greater, because now we can actually see, it's like, hey, we're getting this done, this done, this done, this done, and saying, yeah, even though we can't put that much time into it, like as much as we want, but at least at this point in time, we're getting we're getting things done at our own pace where we're happy. And then it actually increases production, because this is like, oh man, we're turning this thing really yellow. Let's keep going. So it's a different way to distribute energy as well, just to reach our milestones at our own pace. And even though we have to move conservatively, because we have other aspects of our lives that we have to support by working day jobs, and of course being a teacher, now that we're teaching at home for our kids and everything.
So were you ever mentored by anyone in both the VR sense on the tech side and on the entrepreneurial side?
Not really in terms of mentorship, but I will tell you that when I came to 360i, I didn't per se ask for a job. I actually asked for mentorship in terms of just finding out information of what's happening with the industry, and what can I do with my skills for your particular industry, because I didn't know anything about digital advertising at the time. But I remember Brian Wiener, who was the chairman of 360i. He was a chairman, and he did his presentation. I ran up to him and I was like, hey, these are the things that I do. And I'm just wondering what is it that how can I use these skills to break into the digital marketing agency? And he was kind enough to say, hey, you really do all this stuff? I was like, yeah, I teach it to the kids and everything. And he was like, okay, great. So he put me in contact with a great friend of mine that I work with. He was my boss at 360i, name was Lane Harris, great guy. And he kind of gave me a chance, and I approached it like a mentorship. And they gave me a limited time to kind of prove myself. And it was just all about absorbing information, but strictly pertaining to my skill set, which is what I think, which is why mentorships are like so great, because it kind of I think it it doesn't have the stigma that sometimes internships can have, because internships might have those things where it's like, yeah, you're working for free plus like just get my coffee type of get my coffee, which isn't really necessarily true, because the internships of for places I worked at, 360i and right now FCB Health, their internships are great, where people where interns actually do the work that they want to do, you know, and it's not the stereotypical of just like filing like papers and things like that. So that's where I would say that maybe a mentorship kind of started, but it just really evolved into a job, and they really hired me to do a job. But you know, I was seeking to do I was seeking to find that type of community that would help me. But on the outside, really what helped me, I wouldn't say I had mentorship, but I had camaraderie with a lot of friends that had like-minded thoughts, and we had, of course, parallel interests, and that's what really made us made me learn, because we were all learning together. So if finding groups of people that have similar interests and we're all learning is a great way to you know, boost your skills and confidence.
So when you first put on a VR headset, did you know that you were going to reach this goal of creating your own business using VR?
Yeah, absolutely. Not only that, I was creating like VR experiences for where I worked at 360i and promoting, and I was like, hey, this is right up my alley, and I really love it. So yeah, I would definitely say that as soon as I put that headset on, it sparked an interest, and maybe also because, you know, I've played video games since I was 6. You know, not as much as I used to because of life, but you're kind of attracted to something that feels fresh, you know. So when you're playing video games for all that time, and you have the same side-scrolling experience or the same first-person shooter experience, you might be attracted to something that just feels new. And I think that's what VR felt to me. And I was like, hey, there's got to be a market, because I'm pretty sure I'm not the only person that just feels this way. And also, you know, it burns a lot more calories. So I really appreciate that. I think I have a perspective on that, just you know, aging, and I'm just like, okay, you know what, if I can play a game and get a little workout, that's wonderful.
So how long did it take you to learn all of that, to the point where you were confident enough in your ability in VR development to build your own company?
It's interesting. In terms of learning how to design and build for VR, it didn't take too long. Because I was already messing with game engines, and I was, at the time, I think I was using Unity. Right now, our game is being built on Unreal. We switched over from Unity to Unreal. But I don't think it took me long, because, you know, I was used to building small games and just messing in different programming languages. So it wasn't long, but I think the journey for me was longer, because I probably, at one point in my life, I don't think I suffered from indecisiveness, but I probably wanted to be more consistent in things that I did in general. So, you know, being a creative, I think what creatives suffer from the most is that we have a billion ideas. And then sometimes we try to treat every idea the same. And then that leaves you no time to finish off any idea or any execution. So once I realized, I said, you know what? I'm gonna have to have one particular focus and knock this out. And because of that, I mean, it's just been a turnaround for anything that I particularly do. But specifically for this VR game, it's just coming along, and it's, you know, it feels like it's a really positive feeling because of that state of mind, and that shift is really what counts in terms of getting something done. And I'll leave it at that.
In the process of learning, were you helped by any technology like Reddit or W3 Schools or Stack Overflow?
The internet is education, and the education is internet, man. And that's, you just can't, you're not going to, you can't go through the world of technology without going to like other sites and asking for help for when you get stuck. It's you know, if anyone is suffering from imposter syndrome because they're constantly looking up on forums, have to look into APIs where they feel like they should have memorized, please don't. I think everyone in the world does it if you're into tech, and that's just a part of it. No one knows everything, and it's a beautiful system where you can just reach out for help and just and find the right direction when you get off course. Awesome stuff though.
So you mentioned earlier that you tracked goals and to-dos with your teams. Can you go into a little detail about how that helped you?
Yeah, strictly like what it is was just as before. It's just the way we did it was just because we're really an independent company, we're really indie. It's not like we have enough funds to just make a game and just focus on that 40 hours or 50 hours within the week and just and it's just our full-time gig. So the whole thing is just like, hey, we're gonna make these lists of things that we want to see in the game, that we believe it's gonna make our game feel different, feel special, where everyone gets a chance to enjoy it, and we put those features in on day one. And as we just continue to successfully knock out those particular mechanics, we'll just mark it on our spreadsheet, and it's all color coded, so we just know that yellow is like programmed, green is like, okay, we're on this, light green is like we're on this stage of graphics, so we're at concept art. It gets darker green, okay, we've converted it into 3D objects. Then it gets a darker green, then we know that has animation. So everything's color coded, but what makes that so great is that it's aesthetically pleasing. And since it's aesthetically pleasing, it gives us a better idea of where we're going, and it just gives you that energy. It kind of galvanizes you to say, hey, I really want to see this whole thing like the color scheme it needs to be, in order for us to say, hey, we completed this, and we're getting close, and we're gonna hit that right on the mark. So that's basically how it is. So we use tools quite a bit to coordinate and actually to inspire. Man, inspiration's everything.
What was the best advice you ever received?
Best advice I've ever received is probably, it's funny, I probably have advice tied between my parents. One is from my mother, and my mother basically said, make sure that you respect your time. And it's a hard pill to swallow, because a hard thing is to make time for yourself, because you get overwhelmed with like, hey, I have to do this for work, I have to do this for my family, I have to do this for my community, you have to do a lot of things. But truth be told is that if you don't put some of that time into yourself, then you're actually doing a disservice to everyone else around you, because you're not fulfilling your potential. And those are a lot of facts. So I've always appreciated that, and I kept that in mind. And I don't think I absorbed that until much later in my life. But I think that's been something that I've implemented, to respect the time that I have, and to understand that that also relates to the work that needs to be done. So therefore that work, I have to respect the time I need to put into that work. And even though it might feel bad that I might not go out and see friends or might see family, but I think maybe that's kind of the gift and the curse of trying to be an entrepreneur. And the second piece of advice is that my father said, never chase the money, because if you don't chase the money, then you're just going to build your skills, and eventually the money will chase you. I think that's some great advice, although there has to be a point where you have to look at yourself and say, yep, I have these skills, this is my value, and you have to move up, and sometimes that money has to reflect the value that you bring, and that's something that's great. But I think that lesson implicitly says that you'll know when it's time for you to step up, and then and usually that comes when a lot of people just come knocking at the door requesting your services, and that's always a good feeling to have, to feel that type of appreciation.
You said you started about a year before COVID, right?
Yes.
What advice would you give yourself knowing what you know now? If
I had to give myself that advice, I think I would just say, just enjoy a lot of moments, man. Just enjoy the moments. One thing about COVID, it was it just kept everyone in the house, man. I missed a lot of people, like, so I think at that moment it was like, hey, set your time appropriately. I think I'm going back to what I said before, which is basically just respect your time. And like once you're working on something and it's time for family time, pencils down and just put it out of mind. Focus on family, and it maybe even to this day, a lot of my coworkers would tell you that if I don't solve a problem within the day, I'll think about it. I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I'll start working on it. That's something I'm still trying to fight those particular urges. Just to get it. Sometimes it's bad, sometimes it's positive, but just respect the time for everything you have to put in it, and just like have that singular focus for whatever that time is allotted for.
So would you create this business again? Would you do this again?
This is assuming that if there's failure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's interesting you say that. And like in terms, let's say, I would say I probably would. I probably would, but I might just change the structure of what the business is, like what the business is particularly made for. I mean, businesses, I guess they say, are to make money, but businesses also can be there to make social change. So the market kind of determines who's the winner and who are the losers. And if I wasn't there if we aren't good enough to make that financial aspect, I'm like, hey, well, I can still make games just to make people happy, just to experiment. I think that's what's so wonderful about video games, is that a lot of people make video games just for expression. And so I still consider myself, first and foremost, even before technology, maybe an artist. It's just that my paintbrush is a keyboard instead of actual brushes. So I think that is a cool thing, just to kind of switch gears and maybe maybe have a business that kind of changes what its goal is. Not to say that my goal is just strictly to make money, but I guess in order to be successful, you want it to kind of roll on that way. You just meet that goal to make sure your business survives. But in future, I guess maybe there's going to be a point where if I'm so successful, the business has to reimagine itself, or maybe I have to reimagine myself and just say, hey, money's not a problem anymore. Might as well just create things that are that I can give back, which is kind of the key of starting from the beginning. It's like, hey, I want to work for myself, fulfill my potential, because I can probably do more good that way. But it's also good to always contribute, even if you have nothing. So find a way to always give back to your community. And that's always a mantra of mine.
So during this entire process, what was your largest obstacle and how did you overcome it?
Largest obstacle? The largest obstacle was probably, I think it's the obstacle that everyone faces really in life. It's just life itself, in terms of the natural things that happen in life. Like you're always going to have conflict with other people. You try your best to manage that. You're gonna have probably stresses in terms of work-life balance, stresses within family life, friend life. Also just reflecting on who you want to be, your own perspective on who you are and who you want to be. So and not even, and of course we have our social issues, with Black Lives Matter. As you can tell, I'm a African American man. I'm a Black man, and those are things I always have to keep in mind. And those things can be stressful, right? But what keeps me a little level-headed is that I know that everyone else is going through it. So there's really no time for me to have a pity party. So I'm just like, what, if there's I can find inspiration in just by looking at a child learning how to walk. So I know that there's someone out there that's marching for a cause or donating their time to charity, and they're still trying to carry on with their lives, and they're doing their best and keeping their mind straight. So I'm just like, hey, I'm a part of that particular army. I'm that army that's like, hey, it's going to get dark no matter what, because life just has its dark times. So it just is like, hey, you know what? I'm just keep that positivity flowing, give back where I can give back, donate where I can donate, invest in myself where I can invest in others where I can invest, and and that's going to be it's going to just keep me motivated and moving forward.
So how do you collaborate with others? You were talking about how you have a team. How do you collaborate with them?
It's interesting, because when I started out the company Lives for Reality, I didn't even have partners. And then and I was like, okay, I have these skills. I have some business skills. I have some art skills. I have some animation skills. I have some programming skills. And I'm like, I'm gonna do all of this by myself because I can do it. I know I can. And then I said, you know what? This is like the wackest thing ever. This is like so whack. And it's not even because probably some people can do that. They can do all of those or wear all those hats. But I do believe that we're on this earth for each other. And I said, hey, this is a non-collaborative company at this point. I was like, this makes no sense. I was like, this thing will. I was like, if I bring people in, not only are they going to be a better energy with it, it's going to be greater perspectives on where this game is going, and it's just going to be better. So I just said, you know what? I got partners. I told them about the game, and every partner that I have definitely has a different skill set. But what everyone has in common is that they are just great people. I have like the greatest partners that you can have in terms of a business. They're great listeners. They're all creative. But they all know how they contribute. Everyone loves to speak their mind and be respectful at the same time. We're all 100% transparent, down to everything in the business. So I'm a big believer in transparency. So it's been great, and I think that's someone asked me a question recently. I was doing a like a little walkthrough guide for fourth graders over a video conference, and one of the students asked me, he's like, hey, what was the hardest project you ever worked on? And it was a hard question, and I couldn't really think of the hardest question, but I did tell him, it's like, technology has never been difficult in terms of solving problems. Sometimes you might run into a hard problem you have to solve, but I was like, but you eventually solve it. I was like, but what makes anything hard is just working with people that aren't nice. Like, I kind of put it in the nicest way I can say, because I'm talking to fourth graders, but people that don't want to listen, people that have extreme egos, that can, like, regardless of their skill set, anything that anybody that can make an environment toxic, I can't rock with them. So I just won't rock with them. But so my whole thing is like, hey, if you can get people that always bring light and then bring joy to your heart, and you just can't wait to like actually work with them and collaborate, that's like the best thing. So my partners bring that energy, as well as they just so happen to be highly skilled as well, but which is is a great thing about them. But they're really great people. I really appreciate them.
Do you journal your experiences or record them in any other way?
That's really interesting. Like, I don't particularly. I might every now and then have like my mouse skin. I don't have my mouse skin on as much because I'm in the house so much. But I used to carry a mouse skin, and then I would open it up and just like jot some ideas down. Especially I think the worst feeling is when you have an idea and for the game, you're like, oh yes, I can put this in this level and I can add this behavior here, and then like you get home and it's like, oh, I don't even remember what it was. So basically that's it. Keep a notepad on you for everyone that's there, or jot it down in your phone. I kind of like the pencil on paper feel, but I do use my phone from time to time to capture notes. But that's always that's like the extent in terms of documentation, and like in terms of jotting down in my private diary of thoughts.
Right. And that actually leads to the next question. How do you keep organized?
The greatest way to stay organized is to take time to organize. Also, you want to make rules, but you want to make rules on how you organize things, but just take the time, like take out literal time to say, okay, I might have made a file and threw it on my desktop real quick because I was so anxious to see how it worked. I downloaded something from the internet and I threw it in some file, and you're like, okay, where did I put this? So I think that the number one goal is to stay organized. Just make that time. But also, find out what tools there are, and then find out what tools make your partners comfortable too. Because now it's not only about you finding your files. It's like, can my partner find my files, right? So try to put yourself in someone else's shoes, and that usually can help motivate you to keep organized. Because if everyone's thinking like, hey, I'm looking out for the person I'm working with so they can find the files easy on an easier basis, then that's always a great thing to go about. But yeah, organization is key. It's hard to make a game when you have files everywhere.
What advice would you give anyone on how to be successful?
I think it's so odd to say this, but look at multiple models for success, and then kind of look at yourself and see what matches you to some degree, and just keep aware that there might not be a model that extremely matches you, but the one thing is just stick to those fundamentals of what success, what you can't, and the mandatory things you need in order to be successful. Like, one thing is that in order to be successful, you need a product. All right. So a lot of times we have these ideas, and I see it all the time, where everyone comes with ideas, but sometimes you don't do that due diligence to see if that idea is already there, is it original, or if you still want to go with the idea and it's already out there, and it's already has a market, do you want to compete in that market? And I think that's really what it is. It's like, not only have idea, but make sure you can kind of build it. That's a good question. I feel like I'm kind of doing some impromptu answers here, but I'm just kind of trying to fill it out. But I think I'm confident in that particular answer. It's like, hey, make sure you have a product, and make sure you believe in that product, because at the end of the day, you might find success, you might find failure. It might be a good idea, but competitively, you probably can't invest in time or find enough investors. So those things become obstacles that you might not think. So just do as much due diligence, see success cases, but make sure first and foremost that you have the things that are fundamentally sound in order to make a business. A business can't sell nothing. So try your best to create something, and make sure you love that thing. Make sure you love whatever you make, man. Even if you got a brand of like slippers, or a brand of lighters, or you're doing whatever, trying to make whatever it is, make sure you love what you're doing. That's I think that's going to help you. And try not to stress the success or failure too much, man. It's like, if you're building skills, believe me, you'll take notice of someone, even if the business falls to the wayside. You're just gonna find success. Success sometimes that doesn't always mean money. I'll always go down to that advice too. It doesn't always mean money, but sometimes it just means growth.
Great. That is absolutely great. So that was the last question. Thank you so much for this interview.
Oh yeah. All right. Great. Yeah. I appreciate you having me. It's awesome.